We are live streaming in 3, 2, 1, action.
Good evening and welcome back to the Hendrick-Hudson Board of Education meeting. Tonight is December 3rd, 2025. May we all please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we begin, we just wanted to review our emergency exits.
Well, Mr. Cohen, I think you might do the pledge a couple of times. So because we care about your safety and we're in a new place, not our normal location, we just wanted to review some emergency egress procedures. So in the case of emergency, first, please stop screaming. We will, and if we need to evacuate, please turn right out of the auditorium. I've told you to do this. Exit through the door and down the ramp towards the back of the parking lot, and you can also find our other emergency procedures on our auditorium walls and on our website. So now we get to the good stuff.
Thank you. First thing on our agenda is audience comments on non-agenda.
Yeah, I think we need to move that, make a motion to move that to pass recognition.
Motion to move that to pass recognition.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so first then, we are going to approve the agenda for tonight, with now audience comments being moved to after our recognition.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Tremblay as we are here for our Furnace Wood Elementary School recognition.
Thank you, President Silverman. So good evening and welcome to Furnace Wood Elementary School. The board is continuing its practice of holding Board of Education meetings within our school buildings to ensure that we remain deeply committed and connected to the individuals who are at the very center of every decision that we make. This setting allows us to experience the unique culture and instructional pulse that defines our district while observing the daily learning environment firsthand. Tonight, we are highlighting a significant outcome of our collaborative efforts to enhance the educational experience for our younger learners. By partnering closely with our district administrators and the Hendrick-Hudson Education Association, so our wonderful teachers, we have approached our elementary schedule with a shared vision. We sought to create a schedule that not only strictly adheres to the language of our collective bargaining agreements, but that also significantly improves our program delivery for our wonderful students. This process reflects our shared commitment to honoring our professional contracts while prioritizing student needs. A result of this collaboration is the implementation of what we call a WIN period, or WIN block, which stands for What I Need. This dedicated time is designed to target support and enrichment tailored to specific requirements of individual learners. To provide a deeper understanding of this initiative, I am pleased to turn the meeting over at this time to our host principal, Mr. Josh Cohen, who will share insights from the faculty regarding how the implementation of the WIN program is positive in impacting our ability to support high-quality instruction and student growth here at Furnace Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Trombley and the Board of Ed. Welcome, and thanks for making our students and staff and families the first priority on the school night. Okay, we're just reviewing our mission. All right, so we want to really share the great work. This really is collaborative, and every staff member is participating. Classroom teachers, our teaching assistants whenever available, reading and math teachers, special area teachers, our math and literacy coaches, and you're going to hear in the students' words what that really means and looks like in a little bit. So we wanted to talk about how this helps us with our mission to have engaged and passionate learners achieving their maximum potential, and it's often through games and play. This is for one of the slides as well, how we use OT and PT skills weaved in here. And it's really the targeted instruction that the teachers are planning for them in fun ways. All right, I also want to say we're here at Furnace Woods, but these are things that are going on at BV and Frank G. Lindsay as well. We're all committed to differentiation, focusing on their skills, as Mr. Trombley said, extending their thinking as well. And it's always student-centered and creative, and we are connecting it to the curriculum. You'll hear we're using Inter-Reading and Eureka Squared, and many times it could be pre-teaching, support, or again, extensions. Multiple pillars are addressed, such as student engagement, real-world experiences, shared decision-making, to name a few. And now the good stuff. All right, Sienna, you want to come on up here? So again, there are some words here, but she's really going to kind of share what this meant and some of the aspects that are happening on a day-to-day basis. And just so you know, teachers and our reading staff and coaches, we meet every 6 days to talk about how things are going, what needs to be worked on, and then this is the implementation of it.
So, what Miss Lakey was doing, she was giving us half of a number sentence, and then we were putting it there. And then, so I would put 8 here and 2 here. And I would count them all up. And then I would put the answers there and the parts there. So this is a 10 frame. This is a whole or a sum. And they are the parts. And this one they're doing math turkeys with captures. This one they're also doing math turkeys with blocks. And on this one she's doing it just a tiny bit. We're doing the same thing, just with she's writing it on the board instead.
Well done, Sienna. Very thorough.
My name is Emmett.
Here.
In this one, we're reading a book, and once we find the letter, we read the book, and then we look back in the book, and all the CH letters we found, we write on Miss Lakey's table, and then we check the back to make sure that we got every word. In this one, we're doing heart words, and a heart word is a is a trick question. Like is, it sounds like IZ, but it's IS. And then in this one, we're doing a word mapping and finding the diagraph CH, and we're tapping it out.
What's a diagram? In case people don't know.
A digraph is 2 letters that make a new sound.
Nice job. Well done. All right, we'll do the names real quick. What's your name?
Violet. Isabella.
That's okay.
Ian. We are brainstorming. TH words like moth and Theodore. We are doing the Thanksgiving Helper Galactic News, and we're doing the syllables like turkey. It has 2 syllables. Turkey.
You want to do the word potato and show how many syllables that would be?
Potato has 3 words. Gravy has 2 syllables. Gravy.
All right,
Uh-oh.
let's give them a nice round of applause. All right, we're back. All right, what's our next group? You want to tell them your name first?
My name is Hazel. My name is Goya. My name is Kira. My name is Abigail.
Molly, all right.
Wait, one more, Mr. Cohen.
This game is called Number Hut. It's where we have 2 chips, and then the first player moves 2, and they figure out what the total is, and then only one, every turn, you can only move 1 chip, and then you figure out what the item is. The goal is to get 4 in a row and connect 4. We are learning subtraction and plus with the sheet, and you have to do the plus and there's a Chewbacca one with mine. We have to do minus for each one. And we have to figure out the answer by doing it with our hands. If it's too high, we use it with our name tag.
Thank you very much.
Me and Giovanni were doing number sentences with cubes. And we were doing it so we can only do addition number sentences, but we can't do the same number sentence that somebody else was doing.
Thank you, everyone. Go back to your seats and go to the next one. The next part will be about some of our special area teachers. This is Miss Malave, our STEAM teacher, and how she's contributing to the Wind Block.
So we were making number sentences using back then pumpkins, and we were doing addition and subtraction. Fun number sentences. And in Talion, you have to make 10, and whoever makes the 10 gets all the cards, and whoever has the most cards at the end wins. And another game we were playing was this thing, where Miss Malave will give us a number, then she will give us another number. We would have to do the numbers, and we would try to figure out the answer by using these little chips, red and blue chips, and then we would use that little white thing to count up with the pencil. We're also doing spelling and trick words.
Thank you, girl. All right, Alice, come on. So there's a special game that Dr. Lefevre likes to play. Can you tell everyone what it's called?
Wishyland.
What do you do in that game?
You have the syllable and you clap and you have three. Then you gotta like land three. So 1, 2, 3, and then if you have something that you lose, you go back. Like the card said, one of them say go back, and if you whoever wins here gets the most.
And then we have a problem. Yes, we'll come over here. So what do you do on the sand table here?
So we count the candy. So this is 12. And this. I don't This one is 11.
Let's give Alice a nice round. Thank you for the back Thank you. Yeah, and again, so she'll hide different things, words, rules, different versions of numbers so that they can practice but still work on those OT and PT. So, all right. Next up, we have art. Ms. Fierman and Ms. Irwin work with the students during the wind block as well.
We have to cut out the words and we have to illustrate it. All the words were scrambled up, so we had to cut it and put it in the order that it's supposed to go in. We had to do, I can read this sentence, I know what this means, and then we have to draw a picture what we did, what the sentence means, and then we draw the picture about it.
And I just want to show this is just a picture. She doesn't have any notes. That was all just shared on your own. Well done, girls. You can head back to your seat. All right, now we have someone that's not currently a student, but was a student, Ms. Higgs.
All right, so for our reading teachers, some of the activities that they're doing, down here they're working on the word family it, so they have to identify different words that have that sound in it. You'll notice up here students are encoding, so we give them the word family at, and they have to build different words with that sound. So you'll see they have pat, rat, cat. On the bottom here, students are working on math. So we have numbers up at the top, and students get cards that have numbers represented in different ways. It might be through base 10 blocks, it might be on someone with a hand, with fingers, or tally marks, and they have to put it under the correct category. And this eventually will lead to help with graphing, so they're able to see how many numbers. For example, for the number 9, there's 2 cards under the 9, so it will help with that as well. And here, students, this is a grid game, and there's numbers up at the top. Students land on a number, they roll a dice, and then they'll add. So if they're on the number 4 and they roll a 3, they have to do 4 plus 3 and land on that new number. So one of our reading teachers, Mrs. Hine, has a word family garden. So for each word family, students will build a flower. For example, there's the app word family, the op word family, and they have to come up and brainstorm different words that have that family in it. and they're tapping it out and writing it. And on the bottom here, this is some of our second grade students who are working on math. They're working on building 3-digit numbers using standard form, written form, and then they have to put it in a place value chart as well. And one of our math coaches, Mrs. Karwoski, is providing activities that promote critical thinking and communication. So she has a number that only she knows, and students are given one clue at a time, and they have to try to identify that, and Luca's going to come up and explain what that looks like. Ready? What do you think of that? So you're given what chart? The 120 chart. And each clue, this one says, the answer is less than
40.
So you have to identify the number that's less than
40.
And then what's the next clue?
The answer
Is part
is part of this pattern.
And if we have
1, 2,
3,
and
and
5.
5, is it odd or even?
Even. And 1.
It's an odd number.
Even.
That's right. And 3 is.
The answer is greater than 1. The answer is not 29. Or the answer or the number is 2 more than 29.
And then the last clue.
There are some moving pairs of numbers that have a difference of 10 eliminated. All those parts.
Get each clue, and he would have to narrow down the numbers based on those clues. So they're given one clue at a time, and then at the end, there's only a few numbers left, and they have to identify based on the math language what the special number is that Mrs. Karwoski has. And our ELA coach, Mrs. Rizzoli, is working on a few things based on each grade level. First grade is working on genre studies on fairy tales currently. Kindergarten is working on word building. So you'll notice in this picture, she uses Jenga blocks to build word choice and sentence building skills. So students, something we might say is find the anchor words, the words with the capital letter in the beginning and the punctuation mark at the end. And students need to generate sentences that sound right and make sense. So here they're building the sentence based on those strategies. And something that second grade in all areas are doing as well is reading across the content areas. We're incorporating science and really focusing on those comprehension skills, which also aligns with our HMH and NG curriculum.
And, yeah, just thanks everybody. Mr. Warren, during his win blocks, is working on songs, melodies, and patterns to help them work on those early ELA skills as well. Now, Mr. Bruno, during his time, he's doing something a little bit different. As they get older, they have different things like unify, modify, different versions. So we're actually going to be piloting that in second grade. So we've sent a letter out to families, we've got some responses, and he's going to be facilitating some time with the ABC students and some of our second graders, bringing them together in the gym to work on large group games, communication skills. So we're super pumped about how that's going to go, and if it goes well in second, we'll work it with K in 1 as well. So that is it. Well, if you have any questions, but I want to thank all of our families, our students, and our teachers who came out. And again, they don't represent everybody, but they did an awesome job.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen, and our Furnace Woods friends. So before we let you go tonight, Mr. Cohen and I would like to call you up and present you with a certificate. And a certificate is a way of saying thank you for doing something very special And if you ask your parents' permission, just don't go hang it on the wall, because I don't want to get in trouble. But you may be able to hang it on the wall if your parents let you. So we're very thankful that you came with us tonight to share all that you're learning, and we appreciate how hard you're working. So we're going to call your name up.
Okay, the teachers come on up to help us. Thank you for being a part of this. Molly, come on down. Let's give Molly a nice round of applause. Isabella. Sienna. Emmett. Graham, come on down. Violet.
Can I have all my friends take 2 steps that way?
Kira. Abigail.
Look at mine. Hey, I have some. This one. Oh wait, I have this blue. Yours says Emmett, so.
Luca.
We're the only ones who got it. Oh, nice. We get this.
Ian, come on down. Hazel. And last but certainly not least, Alice, come on down.
All this would be why do you have
You want to take a picture with all you guys? Let's try to get you together. And you're gonna face me, okay? Look at me, everybody. This way. One. Good job. Ready? 1, 2, 3, cheese.
Carmen, one more. Carmen, one more. Hold on.
Thank you.
There you go. Hold that.
One more, everybody.
My paper.
We're just doing a face check. There we go.
Excellent job, everybody. We can have you go
Can
back.
we keep these? Bella. Wait, what one?
So families, you're more than welcome to stay for the remainder of a wonderful and exciting evening, or we all know that you're eager to get home and do some homework. I'm done. Okay.
Wait, I'm also.
They always get excited. Thank you.
They were having a dance party out there. We were wondering if you guys would walk through it.
So cool.
So as our families are transitioning out, I just want to say to the board that one of the wonderful things about these recognition programs where we highlight students is that so often the work that you do often feels like business, and we are in the business of students, and there's a different feeling when you know that you're impacting the lives of students. So we definitely wanted to make sure that we take some time to let you see some of the fruits of your efforts, and also to celebrate some really exciting things that as a collective effort of the district, from the board to our administrators to our teachers to our students to our support staff, that we are seeing in the classroom. So I had the opportunity to visit Furnace Woods last week, 2 weeks ago, to sit in on a grade level discussion, and it was wonderful to see for 1 hour all a grade level teachers engaged on ways to support students, and all they had to do was talk about good instruction. So it was really wonderful. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, President Silver.
Thank you. As we move before, we are now up to our audience comments on our non-agenda items. Carmen, do we have anyone here to speak today?
Christine Tehan.
Welcome.
Thanks. It's a good thing I'm here for a positive reason, because if I was going to stand here and complain, I would have canceled it. That was adorable. Thank you for letting that happen. I love watching kids speak, and public speaking is one of the most important skills on the planet, so really and truly that was amazing. And really, I just want to say thank you, because I have been a part of many spaces in 2025. I've been on interview committees, I'm on the curriculum committee, and honestly, it's just been like a breath of fresh air to be in these spaces these days. So after a few years ago, when I was feeling real bad about stuff, just felt the need to come say thank you, because I feel like the administration has been doing a really, really good job, and leadership is getting stronger every day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate the feedback, and we appreciate when it's positive and when we need to do perhaps take another look at things. So thank you for taking the time to come out here and share that. And I feel I have to give 2 presentations, so now I'm nervous about getting the presentation. So, you too, Jill.
Okay, moving right along, we are moving to the consent agenda. Okay, so at this time, we are going to add a walk-on item to the consent agenda under fiscal.
So this is ma'am?
Yes.
The board is receiving a walk-on item that is a resolution related to an agreement with one of our collective bargaining units.
It's fine.
We
Yeah,
put
it's fine.
these things.
It would be under it anyway.
Always put up.
At this time, I'm just going to ask if anyone would like to pull anything from the consent agenda. And then I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated with the add-on walk-on item that we just presented.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second? All in favor? Okay, then there are a few items that were removed from the consent agenda that we are going to look at now. The first would be, these are donations, by the way, so nothing negative. We like donations. The first one is a donation of a Canon printer totaling $567.94. And that would go to the high school business classes from the Charles Schwab Foundation. I teach middle school. The Board of Education would like to approve a donation of the Canon printer. Do we have to make a motion?
Motion to approve the donation?
All in favor?
Second. Sorry, I said
I
second.
think
didn't say
Alexa
second.
seconded.
Didn't hear her.
Okay, and the second we have is a donation totaling $1,500 to the high school physical education department, and this is received as an anonymous donation for the Unified Tennis Program.
Motion to approve this donation?
All in favor? Okay, now we are looking at audience comments on agenda items. Carmen, do we have anyone here to speak?
We do not?
All right, and now we are starting our presentations, and the first one will be on the budget process, budget parameters with Ms. Jill. Mike is going to start it off.
Yes, Jill and I will co-present this, and so I'll wait for Greg to pull up our presentation. So tonight begins a very lengthy process of our budget development for the 26-27 school year. And I often say this is the most wonderful time of the year because while it spans a number of months and it may seem as if we're just talking about dollars and cents, as what you witnessed tonight, we are talking about students and the impact that we can have on students. A budget is not just a balance sheet, it is our expression of our educational values. And we hope to begin discussing what we value as a community tonight. And I truly mean that because we as a school district will present for a period of time what we feel is the best spending plan to impact students and our shared outcomes. And we also need to have the feedback of the Board of Education and our community. So that process begins tonight. Go ahead, Greg, and we can go to the next slide. Just a format note, the slide deck you see today will be the basis of all previous or all forthcoming slide decks. This will be posted on our website when it's finished as a large slide deck. We will post each update of it prior to the board meeting, and based upon the feedback we received last year as a way to better understand this, we will also say with those updates what slide we will begin at so that we know, our community knows where to find the most updated presentation as we begin. It will also be translated as well too, so we will always ground everything we do in our mission, as you can see here. And then we also, this year, I want to share the focus, as I have in other presentations, of our theme that we've asked all of our employees and all of our teammates to engage in, which is actions for the future. And you can see what that means here. In general terms, we will seek to maintain the highest expectations by consistently following through on commitments and modeling visible leadership. We will aim to deliver a rigorous, articulated curriculum through action-oriented instructional planning and execution. We will empower our educators with effective strategies and resources. We will create and sustain learning environments that are challenging and creative. And we will continue to engage families in the community. And this presentation is hopefully one of the visible opportunities to engage our community and families. Next slide, please, Greg. And so the objectives of this presentation is to begin our budget development process. We will talk about what phases a school district's budget goes through. We will outline how those phases evolve and the different parts of them. We will discuss, in particular, Ms. Figueroa will join us to discuss the frameworks that we're operating, what challenges exist, what information we currently know. And you'll hear me say this a couple of times tonight and throughout this whole process. What we know on December 3rd is not going to be what we know in January, is not going to be what we know in February. A school district's budget is an ever-evolving document or statement of our educational values that changes based upon a number of inputs that we often don't even know right before we ask the community to vote on it. Those of you who are veterans to our budget development presentation often know that a major component of our budget is revenue, same as any household budget. And a major component of that revenue is what the state is willing and able to offer. And sometimes we don't know that right up until we are asking the community to go ahead and vote on how they feel about our proposed spending plan. We will also ask the board to provide initial framework to help us to begin to build the budget. Now, we've already started to build the budget, but we want initial frameworks to help us streamline and tailor a budget that the board feels comfortable supporting when we ask it to adopt. So there's a constant communication. We look for feedback from the people who are in the classrooms, to the buildings, to the fields, to the grounds, and we offer suggestions as to what we need to live out the goals that we've already agreed upon in our strategic plan or our mission and vision. And then we also need to hear feedback as to what we feel is the board's perspective, but also what we feel is the community perspective. And so we'll talk about opportunities for the community to provide their input as well. Thank you, Greg. We'll go to the next slide. Just a reminder of our budget calendar. A few months ago, believe it or not, the board actually adopted its budget calendar. So on that are some of the milestones that we'll discuss tonight. It is linked on our budget website. It is linked in that blue hyperlink in our presentation this evening. But in general terms, here's how a budget is developed. From tonight until approximately April 7th, we are in what's called the superintendent's budget. This is where I'm working with our fantastic administrative team, our teacher leaders, our department heads, our building principals, our instructional leaders, anybody who has a say through one of our numerous opportunities for collaborative stakeholder input to develop what we feel is the best articulation of a spending plan to meet the shared goals that we have already agreed upon. As I said before, our mission, our vision, our strategic plan, and our general knowledge of what we're seeing in and out of our classrooms. So that is what we will be presenting until about the 7th. If you skip down a couple bullets, on the 7th of April, I know it doesn't seem like it's not far away, but it's almost June, as I always say, we will ask the Board of Education if we've done a good enough job explaining to you what we need, what we in terms of the frameworks of some of the constraints we may be facing or some of the challenges we may be facing. If you're okay with that spending plan, we would ask you to adopt it. Once the board adopts the Board of Education, it becomes the Board of once the board adopts the budget, it becomes the Board of Education's proposed budget, and then we will continue to communicate what the board has adopted to our community. We certainly, although I like to think that every community member is watching every single one of these meetings, we certainly can't expect the community to watch with great anticipation and a bucket of popcorn every discussion that we have up until the vote. So to do that, once we have a better idea, we will begin to communicate through public forums, through thought exchanges, through individuals who want to meet with Ms. Figuerello, myself, or any member of our team who's helped develop this. We will make ourselves available to help explain what we are asking the community to vote on so that they can feel that they can make an informed decision at that point in time. And then once we have done that, we will ask the community to vote on that budget and also our school board election and any ancillary proposals that we might have. For instance, in the past, we've asked to vote on the adoption of purchasing buses. That's not within the budget. That would be a separate proposition. So that would occur next year on May 19th. If we do have a need for a budget revote, that would take place shortly thereafter on June 16th. So just as you can see through there, those are some of the major milestones that we will be going through together over the next couple of months. I talked about this and I won't belabor it, but we have already started to develop the budget. We've had our actual first meeting with one of our budget code owners in October. We shared with our administrative team, teacher leaders, anybody who has responsibility to propose budget expenditures or to approve budget expenditures or who runs a program to begin to develop what they think they need to develop the best possible program for our students. Now, having said that, when I asked my wife what she wanted for Christmas as her wish list, it's going to be a lot more than I can afford. So there will be a paring down, hopefully, if she's watching, no there won't be, there will be a paring down of that wish list, and in a similar manner, everybody who is preparing their budget knows that for whatever reason there may be changes to what they are submitting to us. But this does a couple things for us as a leadership team. It helps us to understand what the people who are working with our students day in and day out are requesting, what they think they need. It helps us have a conversation about does what they're requesting align with what we as a community value as measured against our shared outcomes, our strategic plan, our mission, our vision. So we want to hear that. But again, this goes to the fact that our budget is an evolving process until it is adopted. That is going to be a dynamic item, and I'll go into that a little bit differently, or I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. The budget you see this evening will not be the budget you see at our next presentation. In fact, you won't see a budget this evening because we don't have enough to share with you. We're going to go into concepts here. But the budget you see at the next board meeting, where we discuss budget, will not be the same budget as you see on April 7th. If you followed us over the past couple of years, you've noticed that the budget that you see initially is a much larger spending plan request than you normally would see in April, because we are presenting to you what we have been shared with, and after an initial blush, what we feel we need to run a program. And we know that it will need to be adjusted. So I say that because I use the term, it's transparency and progress, not finality. We will provide transparent information into what it takes up, what makes up that overall spending plan total by having these presentations, by having continued communications, by having a day of fun, if you saw in the previous slides of our line-by-line budget review, where everybody's favorite day with me is a Saturday in March where we sit down and we go through every single budget line. We look at previous year's expenditures. We looked at the current year to date expenditure. We look at what's been proposed for the next year. So the board will have enough information to have a good understanding of what we're asking for. And if there's things that we need to fill in the gaps, we will do that. While it is not a final budget yet either, because we don't know a lot of variables at that time, it's our best thinking as close as we can get to when we are going to be asking the public to make some decisions about that. And so it's not going to be a final budget anytime you come to a presentation here. So I would encourage anybody who would like to provide feedback to watch the presentations that we have and come and ask questions and provide feedback in an understanding that the final budget will not be adopted until April 7th. We want as much feedback as possible, because this is a large and very, it's not like a home budget where you can just simply roll things over. We have we are dealing with students here, their needs change, and at the same time we are also dealing with a community whose needs to be considered as well. So Gregory, we can go to the next slide. What will those presentations look like? They're going to follow a similar format. Starting in January, we will have a number of topics which are listed out on the budget calendar, and our agendas as we post them will also talk about what topics or what areas of our school district budget will be explored. We always start with my budget, so that'll be first, and that will be on the 7th. We will talk about what we've asked the people when we've asked our colleagues when they present to talk about what are the fantastic things or the things they are proud of that they did with the budget that they were allotted in the 25-26 school year, so right now. We asked them to share some of the impact that that may have had. Because obviously when we spend money on something, we want to see what comes out of that. So I feel that the community is owed that we asked them last year for approximately $100 million to run our school program. We want to share what's been done with some of those funds as we go through this process. We will then ask our presenters to share what they are requesting for the 26-27 school year to the best of their knowledge of what aligns to our strategic objectives and what they know to be a high-quality program. We will give high-level overviews of the budget code, the dollars and cents that are there, and in general terms during the presentations that occur during the week, we will talk about if they anticipate an increase or decrease to that budget code. We can't hold people to the dollar that they would present on because it's going to change. It always does, and we don't want to set up a false expectation. The exception that we will have in terms of not talking about salary, we probably won't talk about staffing and salary until we get to that line-by-line budget review, but we will try to provide as much detail with people personnel services. At the line-by-line, as I said, we will go into detail, provide a staffing review, and after each presentation, there will be time for the Board of Education to ask questions. Obviously, we have public comment, and we at Hendrick Hudson always revisit the parameters that we are operating in to make sure that they are still applicable, to make sure they still reflect any changes in the variables that go into a budget, and help us provide that direction. So this time, what we're going to discuss over the next couple slides is what are some of those frameworks that we have to operate within as we build this initial budget, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Figueroa to talk about some of those. We often call them budget drivers. So the keys to the car are yours to drive, Ms. Figueroa.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, we're going to talk about some of the things that drive the budget this year and every year. These are some of the larger items. So we have our operational costs. Obviously, these are some of the highlights. We'll have collective bargaining agreements for 3 units. So this year we are negotiating with 3 of the 5 units that exist in the school district. They would be the HHCSD, which is the teachers union, the CSEA, which are our bus drivers and custodial workers, and then also our DAA, which are our administrators union. We do have several staff retirements, this June 30th of 2026. That will help with our salary budget and benefits, but there's a differential between new hires and the people that are leaving, so these are just significant items that we know are going to drive the budget. Our healthcare costs increasing 5%. We just learned this today, so again, as you mentioned, it's ever changing. We learn new facts and figures every day, every week, right through the end of the budget process. That 5% increase is about an $800,000 increase to our budget overall. We have pension costs for teachers' retirement system and then the rest of the staff. So there are two separate pension costs to the district that we contribute to as a district. The employees also contribute to that. The pension cost for the teachers union this year, actually we're going to see a little bit of a decrease there, about 0.5%, I believe. And the pension cost for the other staff, we are going to see an increase. That rate has not been set yet. We have our special education related costs, usually experience increases there. And of course, that's an ever-changing population within the school district, so it can be costly. We have enrollment increasing for English language learners. That's been going on, I'd say over the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen quite an increase in that population in the district. Also, consumer price index increases for goods and services. Every year we've been seeing increases in the CPI, as we refer to it, and that's for everything we purchase, whether it's delivery charges, supplies and materials, and so forth. And then again, increasing future debt for possibly electric bus funding. We know that's coming. We know we have to implement that over the next 10 years. And it's mandated by the state of New York. And then there are other capital improvement costs. So the things that I've mentioned here are just like the biggest ticket items that occur in our budget from year to year. Then we can get into our revenues, and those revenue drivers, some of the revenues that I'd like to mention are ones that we have to estimate, and those would be our tuitions for out-of-district students. They can fluctuate from year to year. Currently we have about 22 students that come from out-of-district, and that can change from year to year. Again, we basically transition into classrooms that already exist for those students, and we don't create new spaces for them, and like to keep it to where we can transition them into our own classrooms so that we're not increasing costs for students that aren't part of our district. Interest rates on investments, of course, that can fluctuate in the economy. Last year we had a good return on our investments. We utilized a new tool, new investment with our New York class. It's a investment pool that school districts are allowed to use to invest in, and I believe we had a decent return in investments that we hadn't had before, a little over $600,000. Our sales tax revenue, again, is driven by the economy. That's usually around $1.8 million in our budget that we can count on from Westchester County, our sales tax revenue. And our state aid, again, it's unknown. About mid-January, we will start getting estimates from the legislature, and won't be getting final state aid figures until April. So we will have already established a budget at that point when we get our final state aid, and that isn't always very helpful. Usually what they give us in January for figures are, they're around what we're going to get. Very rarely do we see it go down. It does go down though, so I won't say that it has never gone down, but we have to be conservative looking at our state aid figures. So our decreasing revenues that we know about. So this is This is a very unique topic, especially in Hendrick Hudson School District, because of the closing of the Indian Point facility. An annual loss, and this is significant, to our revenues are $2.2 million on average, and that is through our cessation mitigation funds. So those cessation mitigation funds come as a result of the plant closing, and that is the state aid portion that we receive in lieu of those taxes that we would have collected from the facility. When the facility first closed, we were bringing in revenue, for tax revenue, about $23 million. That got broken into two buckets. The first bucket is the cessation mitigation funds that we get from the state. The second bucket is from the Holtec Pilot, the company that owns the property that the plant sits on. So the first bucket that I spoke about was the larger one. Over 7 years, we're going to lose $16 million. That started about 3 years ago. So it's a 7-year cycle that we'll be receiving those mitigation funds from the state, and then they will stop. So we're going to lose $2.2 million from that bucket over the next 3 years, I believe, are left on that. The Holtec Pilot, payment in lieu of taxes, that's the company that owns the land, owns the facility that's remaining. We have an agreement with them. That's expiring in 3 years. We get right now $3.3 million in tax revenue from them, and until that, if that contract is negotiated with them, that may continue and it may not. So as a result of losing that revenue every single year, we are continuously using our fund balance to close the budget gaps. So the difference between our operational costs and our revenues that are coming in, we need to draw from that fund balance in order to close that gap. So the remaining fund balance, I'll just go back and talk about what we have at the end of June 2025. So we just ended that school year, we ended the audit, we all know where we stand with fund balance at the end of June. Our June fund balance remaining at the end of June 30th, 2025, it did increase by $1,033,000. $1 million of that came from a grant that we got from Senator Hargam. It wasn't because we had leftover revenue from the budget from last year. So what does that tell us? That tells us that we are pretty flat in our planning as far as the budget goes. We've kind of reached that place where we're not, we're planning on using X number of dollars to close that gap, but it's very, very tight. Our gain was about $33,000 in the budget overall. That's a very immaterial amount. The financial forecast for the current year that's coming up, this current year that we're in right now, I expect to use all of the $4 million that we plan to use as part of the fund balance. In years past, we planned to use the fund balance, but we didn't use all of it. We were able to put it back because we had savings. We had revenues that we didn't expect. I don't see that happening this year. I sat with the finance committee November 17th. We went over what I felt was the forecast for the remainder of this year by looking at what the trends were, what we've been spending from day one this year, and forecasted that out till the end of the year. I'm hoping that some of that $4 million will be left over at the end of this year to go back into our fund balance that is existing. I can see just based on last year that we used the fund balance that we had, and so it's unlikely that we're going to have that $4 million or part of that $4 million left over. You can go forward. So preliminary budget estimates for 26-27 are showing trends in the budget that would result in a need to use $9.7 million. Why? Because if we know we used the $4 million this year, we know we're going to need that for next year. We have increasing costs in the budget across the entire budget, right? All of our expenses are going to go up 2 to 3%. We have three contracts that have to be negotiated for employees that I just mentioned earlier. We have increasing health costs, $800,000. All of these numbers are very large numbers that we're going to be adding on to the budget, and I don't see a way or a revenue stream coming from any other resource to cover those costs. We're going to lose the $2.2 million from revenue from the cessation fund. So add that all together, and we're close to $9 million. I'm hoping that's a conservative guess, and it's going to be lower. So although these are, like I said, preliminary estimates, we need to take a serious look at this and get an understanding of how this is going to affect our budget this year and the years going forward. So every year, like I mentioned, we use the appropriated fund balance. It automatically indicates that the following year we'll be using that amount plus a new amount. By 28-29, this being the case, we would be depleting all of our fund balance. The good news is that this year, I do have, there is a little bit of brightness in this, is that we've been thoughtful enough as a district to create a capital reserve, establish a capital reserve, realize that our infrastructure, our buildings, and the value of people's homes in the town, the taxpayers' homes, we want them to retain their value. So we've created a capital reserve account. My recommendation this year going into the budget, and of course would have to come from the board as well, would be to start funding that capital reserve. As you can see, our reserves that we have may soon be going away. So we need to mitigate the funds that we're going to have to use for debt in the future, and that's one way of doing it. We've been also thoughtful enough to create some reserves for our pension funds and so forth, because we know that those are a direct liability to the school district. Okay, so we talked about the expenses, we talked about the revenues. Again, they're just trending and thoughts about what could be coming for the budget. We didn't compile the budget yet, but those are some of the major topics. And the other major factor in our budget is developing a tax cap. So there's a lot of fiscal pressure from everybody, of course, and ourselves included, to remain tax cap compliant, to stay under that tax cap. However, those realities that I just talked about and the revenue losses that we are going to experience, it's going to be very difficult to stay under that tax cap. I see significant reductions in revenues coming. The reality of a 2% CPI, which the 2% CPI is part of the formula, but it can't possibly make up for the loss that we're talking about, or the increased costs that we're talking about in the budget, without decimating programs and things such as that. So due to our unique circumstances, and there are other school districts around the state that have power plants that are closing. We're not the only ones. It is unique though. There are very few, and we find ourselves in a very precarious position because of it. So by 28-29, we will have reduced our tax revenue by $23 million. It's almost a very difficult place to be in and be able to sustain what we have. There's been some careful planning in the past, and through the years where, we've had enough fund balance to carry us through to this point, but we really seriously have to start thinking about what we have to, where we have to go to raise new revenues for the district. As far as the formula goes for tax cap, we're not ready to prepare that yet. There's a tax growth factor available, but it won't be available till mid-December. We get to apply that to last year's tax levy. The state develops that growth factor. We have nothing to do with it. every school district is given a different growth factor that they can use in the formula. We'll be told what that is pretty soon. This final state aid is not available until late April, so we have to keep that in mind. We'll get estimates in mid-January. Again, district pension contribution, these are just factors that affect the tax cap that I'm talking about right now. So pension contribution rate increases cannot be realized in the tax cap formula unless they are increased over 2%, and we're only allowed to utilize the difference between 2% and whatever that increase is. So if it doesn't go over a 2% increase, then we can't include it. There's many other budget factors, such as the health insurance, which we see going up 5%, that we're not allowed to include in the formula. They're not part of the formula. So again, everything that's included in the budget, that's the only things we can use when we calculate the tax cap. We can go to, I don't know, I have one more slide?
I think it's me.
Okay, back to you.
Thank you, Jill.
So I just, if anybody has any questions, I guess we'll go over them at the end.
Yes, we'll go over questions at the end. We have just a few more notes here. So Jill just broke down some very complex considerations in a very succinct way, so I'm very appreciative of that. And she'll, of course, be able to answer some questions when we get to that. As I said, there will be various opportunities, because there is a lot that goes into a school budget, for stakeholder input. We will, of course, have our public board meetings where we present what we think we will need to deliver the best educational program. Those will all come with public comment. There are finance committee meetings before those public sessions where we receive feedback from administration or from the board about administrative suggestions, which then play out in the presentation, so it's not done behind closed doors. That information is then played out in public in a public presentation. There will be information sessions led by Ms. Figuerella and I after the board adoption, so we can help explain the adopted budget, and if anybody has any questions, we can definitely answer it at that time, speaking from a more stable understanding of what is in the budget. There's always an opportunity to reach out to myself, and then Ms. Figuerella and I will be happy to have a meeting with any individual. And then also we will have a thought exchange so that people can weigh in on their thoughts on the budget, and you can share your reflections on other community members' thoughts as well. Greg, we can go to the next slide, please. So this is where I ask the Board of Education to provide us some initial input. And I will say we're seeking initial parameters to help us build our budget where we stand right now. You've heard a little bit of information, as my son would say, enough to be dangerous. But given our financial situation, it's imperative from my perspective that we have conversations early and often and open, so that we all have a good understanding of what we are presenting to the community and why we are asking for certain things and not asking for other things, and why we are shaping the budget the way it is. And that work begins tonight. Jill gave you a long list of items that we have to consider that some people may see as challenges. I look at them as opportunity for our community to come together, have really good conversations, show to our students how we can engage in positive problem solving. And while it is a challenging situation, we have the opportunity to really do some fantastic work within our district while we address those problems. So in the past, we've had these parameters that I'm going to ask for your feedback on have centered around, I'm going to read you last year's at this time, the parameters that the board at that time came up with just as an exemplar. And I will share this with you that we have about 8 of them, but by the time we adopted the budget in April, we were down to 5 because of some of the discussions we've had. I won't share all of them, but one of them was ensure the proposed budget does not exceed the statutory tax levy limit. Another parameter from last year on December 6th, as a matter of fact, was to develop a budget that supports a responsive and adaptable instructional program. We had a consideration to incorporate funding for extracurricular clubs and activities at the elementary level to support student engagement and enrichment. That was one of those parameters that as we went through the budget, we made the decision to remove. So those types of conversations, and you don't have to be as articulate as that, it could just be simple things such as, hey, we want you to save staff. and then I'll make it look really fancy by the time we get to our next board meeting, just so we can have that in there. So I'd like to open it up to the board to help provide us. We'll have the opportunity for questions throughout this as well too, but we're looking for some initial parameters, and they may be, we want you to explore piercing the tax cap and what that may mean, and just those types of things, or we want to stay within the tax cap, and what does that mean? We may not know what it means yet, but we can talk about it in concept. Or we preserving program, expanding extracurriculars, right-sizing the district in terms of staffing. These are all things that can be considered, and while we say there is no wrong answer, we may just have to refine what it looks like to help us better understand what the board is thinking. So I'll turn it over to the board.
So after coming off the board for a year, coming back, I don't feel as fluent and privy as I used to, so I don't necessarily have parameters that I'm ready to come out with this evening. However, I just want to make sure that we sort of read it into the record and discuss it here and say it, that, and correct me, is it 80% of our budget goes to contractual staff salaries?
Salaries and benefits.
Right, so the fact that we are negotiating 3 contracts of our 5, which covers almost probably 90% of our employees in the district, or 80% of our employees, because the HHEA is the largest. I feel like we don't have too much that we can say until we get a little bit more information as a board on how contract negotiations are going, because I don't know where that puts us. So I really don't have too much of a perspective on what my parameters are. I want to make sure, obviously, that our staff gets fair contracts. So I think I need more information. That's just my perspective.
I agree with you on that. The other piece that I know we've been toggling with is we all want that definitive answer, like, do we want to remain within the tax cap or do we want to pierce the tax cap? But as of right now, we don't know what the tax cap is. So if it's a 2%, we would say absolutely we probably would need to pierce that in order to sustain our staffing. Because even if during negotiations, even a 1% increase would be more than the 2% tax cap. But then if the tax cap is at a higher number, we might need to be within that tax cap. We don't know what that number is, and we won't know until January, sometime mid-January. So I don't think we can give a definitive answer on whether or not we want to remain within the tax cap or pierce it, unless anybody has any other information. I would say with the fund balance, it does scare me a little bit to think if we were to use almost 10 million of it next year, where does that leave us for 2030? Because if we deplete our entire fund balance before 2030, in 2030 the taxes are going to have to increase an astronomical amount. It's going to have to pierce the tax cap, but I'm assuming if the tax cap is even 5%, I'm assuming by 2030 then we would have to go to like 13% or higher. I'm just ballparking numbers. If we don't have a fund balance to dip into at that time.
Erica has a question, and then I'll go after.
So as far as parameters, I agree with Alexis on all of her points, and I think we're at the point right now where we can tell you what we want and dream of, but I think we have to start, I think our parameters are get as creative as possible within what we have now, right? So looking at staffing, looking at class sizes, looking at all of those things, we don't have that information. FTEs, like as a board, we don't have any of that information, and you shared with the finance committee going all these, the numbers, the rest of us don't have those numbers. So I sort of feel like I'm flying a little blind here, to be honest, with where we are as far as expenses now versus, and how that may play out the rest of the year. So that's, nothing else I can really add. This presentation is just what Jill shared with us, not anything other than that, Erica.
I just wanted to go really quickly. I think as a board, the uncomfortable conversation is going to have to be had at some point, right? So in 2023, we were saving $3.1 million in our fund balance. 2024 was 4.1 million. We go to 2025, and we're only going to save $33,000. Let's forget the $1 million we were lucky to get from Senator Harkin, right? That's showing a decrease of our fund balance that's going the other way. So whether we want to sit here and say we don't want to pierce the tax cap and we don't want to go above it, I think at some point we're going to have that conversation as a board, because unfortunately, if we don't do it this year, when 2030 rolls around and the cessation fund is completely gone and we have no money, instead of 4%, we'd be talking about 15%. And then people that live here are not going to be able to stay in their homes. So for me personally, I plan on being here for a very long time, and I'm sure everybody is here as well. But I'm also concerned about our community members, especially our seniors that live here. If they get their taxes raised to 15% in 2030, they're all going to leave. Some families are going to leave anyway because they're going to say, I can't live here anymore. And I know we're just talking about the school taxes, but I live in Buchanan. So I also pay Buchanan village taxes on top of the school taxes. So when we sit here and analyze what we need to do, I think the uncomfortable conversation, the time has come for it, because we're already seeing the depletion happening in front of our eyes. We just went over the audit, and the audit was presented in October, right? They came in, they did the audit presentation, they showed us how the money is being depleted. If we take $10 million this year, right, next year will probably be $15 million. So by 2029, we have nothing left. So it's either we're going to talk about, hey, we have to pierce the tax cap, and maybe it's a couple of percentages now, and we all live to fight another day past 2030, and everybody here survives, or we let people know, hey, we're going to not go over the tax cap, we're going to not deal with the uncomfortable situation, and we're going to kick the can down the road, and then in 2030, your taxes could be 15 to 20%. And then that's kind of what we're going to be left with. But we all live here, right? So I think as a board, we've seen the trend lines of what's been happening, and this audit presentation alone just showed it all on paper. So you take 10, 10, 10, we're done in 3 years. So I think as uncomfortable as it is, I know people don't want to hear their taxes are going to get higher, or they're going to go above the tax cap, or we might have to pierce it and we can't keep it low. Listen, the world is changing right now. We don't even know what we're going to get from state aid this year, right? We've been lucky as a district also. If they usually give us 15, they gave us 16, right? $16 million, and we were lucky. We've been lucky for the last 3 years, but we don't know what's about to happen. And I think as a board, we have to set ourselves up to have that uncomfortable conversation now and say, what do we want to do and how do we want to plan this out to ensure that everybody in this community survives? So for me personally, we want to keep the tax cap as low as possible or under the threshold. Yes, absolutely. But the conversation about us going over it is going to have to happen. And yes, we don't have enough information right now, but forget the state aid and all the unknowns that we don't know. The audit presentation that we just had in October gives us the full picture of what's going to happen here. So I think everybody just, I don't know how, I'm not going to speak for anyone, I'm only going to speak for myself. The time for the conversation has come. Allison, you wanted to speak down there.
So Erica said something that kind of sparked something for me, and that is to be creative and start thinking about solutions that don't necessarily always mean depletion, but additional sources of revenue for this district that are sustainable. That will, when we're talking about 2030, let's talk about, beyond that. The Indian Point is no longer a source of that revenue that we relied on for so long, but we can't just take the whole and try to figure out how to survive with that, with everything else and all of our prices increasing. So I think one of the things that I am going to be super motivated to do as a board member here and as a member of the advocacy team is to look for those creative ideas, for those sources of revenue, and work with the advocacy team and work with the administration here to see what we can do to come up with more sustainable streams of revenue for this district that will not just keep us out of those holes, but maybe I mean, there's lots of different creative ways to do it, and we've already discussed some of those, and it's a crazy time, and we don't know what's gonna happen in the next couple of years, but we have to think about how can we not just sustain but rebuild, right? So that we can continue to keep these programs. We're gonna lose really important things that make this district special and that people love about our schools if we can't find other ways to fund them. So I'm willing to fight, I'm willing to be creative, I'm willing to show up at offices of whichever elected official will listen to us and, you know, like, I will advocate for bills that will help us, and there are some that are out there, and Mike and I have been on some meetings, and the advocacy team has been working. If we can get the community involved in the discussion about the budget, we should also be getting them involved in the discussion about advocacy for increasing our value as a district. And that includes whatever money we get from the state. If it's not enough, let's fight for more. If there are federal bills, if there's bills in the Senate, there's bills in the House, and we know that our congressional, you know, representatives are going to co-sponsor those bills, then let's continue to put our foot on the gas to push those through as a community. Anybody who's willing to stand up and say that we need help with this, we should be gathering those voices, and I'm one of the people that is very happy to be one of those voices. Just positive. On that.
I kind of agree with everyone here, so I agree that we have to wait and see what happens for Jill and see, you know, what kind of numbers we get. And I know people are working on, you know, different grants and things to come in, right? We're reaching out in other areas for money to see how we can get some funding based on the power plant shutting down, and maybe that's something that'll come up in a few years. But you know, I think, like Tamika said, we have to see, you know, face what's happening, and that's a truth that may be coming our way, so we have to, you know, keep that in mind as well. But obviously, the basic parameters that we want to stick with is to keep basically what we've worked so hard to build and bring back to this community. You know, things are going really well. All our programs are going pretty well. There's new programs that you know, teachers have come up with that we want to try to implement, different courses. Our staff is great, so I think we want to try to keep what we have, but we have to face the truth as well. And we all, you know, many of us sitting here have younger kids in the district, so we're going to be here for a while. My son's youngest is only in first grade, so I have quite a while. But so obviously we want things to keep remaining the way they are, but be able to continue living here as well. So, and I also have a mother who lives here. She is retired, and we have to keep certain things in mind. I know Tamika's mother lives here as well. So, yeah, it's a tough situation, but I don't really, yeah, I agree with everybody. We can't really like come up with a parameter right now because we don't really know what's coming our way. So.
I was going to say, with that in mind, like I know we can't talk definitively on whether or not we wanted to pierce the cap right now because we don't know what that is. Things though that I would want to keep in mind as we are building this budget. One, I know we have our 3 contracts that are being negotiated now. I would say for me, I would want to make sure that we are presenting a fair and reasonable contract for each one, because we have to be realistic in how much of an increase we can provide, but we also want to make sure that we are being reasonable enough that our staff would want to remain here. Because if you don't give them an increase, then we will lose some of our amazing teachers. I also think that we should continue to look at our facilities in terms of, as you mentioned, investing into making sure that we are putting money aside. And currently we are just looking at that capital project that phase 2 is going to begin this summer. And as we were deciding what should go into this capital project that is currently underway, we had $90 million worth of repairs and remodels and our wish list, and we were only able to do $30 million. So I think we definitely want to make sure that we are investing within our infrastructure, because if we don't, we won't have buildings to put our students in. And going back to what Erica was saying before about our programming, I don't think necessarily we ever want to cut a program, but we should be looking at auditing our programs to make sure that the class sizes that are running are reasonable as well. So it wouldn't be a cut if it's something that's not being utilized. It would be then repurposing staff for a better use. So I wouldn't want to cut. I would want to make sure that what we are offering our students is what they actually want to have. Those would be the things that I would want to consider as I'm looking at this budget. If anyone can chime in.
I think Chloe wanted to go.
So I agree with everything that everybody has said as well. As a producer in my day job, one of the things that I deal with budgets all the time, and budgets that aren't big enough for asks that are huge. And one of the things that, when a client says, we have $50,000 less than you need, I go back and I scrub the current budget that I think can't possibly lose money from any line. So I would encourage, and I know we do this already, but I would encourage to really roll up the sleeves to everyone that's putting together a budget to submit to you, to go through line by line and see what money has not been traditionally used in the past and reallocate it. There's going to be places that you need to put it now, that maybe it doesn't need to be, where it has been in the past. I think we could be creative, to use the word that Erica and Allison used, and move around things that, we know we may not need or don't need anymore, or be creative with our budgets. So just being as efficient as humanly possible on every single line, because I know how much you like your line by line. And the other suggestion, what?
Nobody else likes it?
Yes, we all
like it. That's a fun day. Number crunching.
The other thing I was just going to say, to also build on what Amelia had just said, in terms of the programming that we offer, how can we make sure that it's reliant on the data that we're getting, in terms of the enrollment numbers, the needs, and being creative, like we have been, and come up with ideas to do programming that doesn't cost more, that may offer opportunities for the students that they may not otherwise have. So just being creative in opportunities like that. And then lastly, I think, it's challenging with the 3 contracts expiring in the same year. So our hands are a little bit tied, as we have all said. And I think that every decision that we make has to have like a 10-year plan attached to it. It has to be the fund balance. If we decide to use $4 million this year, what does that mean for each of the next 5 years? Like every decision that we make when we're negotiating these contracts has to be sustainable. So if it's a 3-year contract, we have to be able to carry it for 3 years. And how are we going to carry something that has, too big of an increase? Obviously, I want the teachers to get paid. They're the most valuable part of our entire institution, but we're all living in this reality, as we've said. So I think that, again, the tough conversations need to be had. They need to be had at the bargaining table. They need to be had when we're doing our individual budgets. And obviously, we need to, consider them when we're approving the budget.
So, and going back to what you said, like Jill's saying, you didn't see anything different than we talked about, but I haven't seen projections, so I don't know where we stand. What I'm saying is we need to show the community and the board where we stand. So numbers, some people really like to digest numbers and see numbers. So some kind of a spreadsheet that shows our progression, and where we're losing and what our projections are, because now, we're throwing out these numbers, but we don't really have, we haven't seen them. So,
Seeing what?
any numbers? We haven't seen,
No one's seen any numbers. The
I mean,
finance
we haven't done,
committee-
she hasn't done
Can I
those
just-
yet.
okay, I'm very confused. Okay, we were just told that the finance committee was presented with numbers that showed where we are with spending now and what the spending for the remainder of the year looks like. Did I misunderstand that?
No, you didn't misunderstand that. We looked at the budget where it is right now, and if we were going to be, if we continue spending this year, you know, monthly costs that we have right now, how much we would have left over at the end of this year. And I presented that to you also by saying that money is going to be used up, what we put into the budget. It's not going to have,
I left the meeting.
that's for the current year. What I don't know is what I couldn't project for numbers are, because of the, we haven't negotiated those contracts yet, right? So those budgets, I would be guessing, I could say to you, if we gave, you know, the unions or the units that aren't, this much of an increase, or this much of an increase, or this much, there's so many different scenarios that we could go over, but none of it is solid information. I don't feel like if I share that kind of information, it's so
Okay, so
broad.
we have a $9.7 million number that is an estimate of, that came from somewhere.
And that's if we continue right now with what we're doing.
So nothing else changes?
Well, of course, there's an anticipation of what bargaining contract or
So that's part of-
salaries could be,
So is that part of that 9.7 million estimate?
yes.
Okay.
Erica, just because I'm also not on that committee, I'm assuming if we use 4 million this year, she's assuming we're going to use that 4 million next year, plus another 4 million.
I know, but we cannot assume, right? We need to
No,
see.
I know, but
We
the
need to
trending
see.
that way, that's
Yes.
where I'm.
So,
We also have more information than our entire community, right? Like, just because we happen to be on the board. We have to start looking at being really creative with our programs, we have to talk about FTEs before April, right? Like, how are we getting creative with what we're doing right now? What kind of curriculum do we need? Like, we really don't have any idea of what's in that $9.7 million estimate. We don't. We're just being given a number.
so here's what we've done in the past. After this presentation, we've, at each budget presentation, after we review parameters, after we have the presentation, we provide projections, and we will continue that process to provide projections with the variables that we have. I will always say the caveat is this, is that if one of those variables changes slightly, that impacts all the other figures that are there, so we as a community have to agree to understand that what is put up on a screen is dependent of change, and we're happy to do that because those projections help, while they're not written in stone and while they do not show what is going to be 100% accurate, they are our best thinking at that given point in time, and that's an action item that we can start to do when we do our presentations.
Right. I just think, you know, just looking at knowing estimation, you have to be an estimator when you're budgeting. And when you're estimating that, if I'm estimating that we're going to use that $4 million this year, I know we're going to need it next year. Because if I'm using it this year on a budget that is going to be part of the budget next year, it's only going to increase.
Right, but you're asking, but here's the thing, this is where the confusing part is. You're asking us to give parameters of what we want to see happen, but we don't really have a starting point, we just have estimates. So like the parameters are going to be, the parameter going above or below the tax cap, like we may not have a choice, like Tamika is saying, but that's not really a parameter.
No.
That's not a parameter.
I think what we're looking for...
Jill, if I may.
Okay.
This is actually, if we replay the tape to last year this time, this is the exact conversation we had last year, that we don't know what parameters to give us. The board, I think, needs to give itself more credit. You've given me initial parameters that are exactly what I'm looking for. And I will write these up, I'll make sure that they reflect what actually was said at the table. But you've given us a starting point. And that's all this takes, is a starting point. I've heard we want to use a creative thinking process as we begin to build this budget. Okay. I've heard that we want to, there's a parameter that we can build around at this point in time, preserving programs as much as possible, while being mindful of inputs that go into that, such as our class sizes being efficiently maintained, are we offering a program that is responsive to our student needs? That's a parameter. That's something we can very easily do when we are meeting with a budget code owner and say, hey, this falls outside of that parameter, this is on track. I've heard that we want to talk about fair and reasonable contract bargaining, to come out with to fair and reasonable contracts with our labor. That is a unique situation this year. If you've been on the board for the past couple of years, that is a major variable that has not existed. If you do have a major component of your budget is tied up in salary, and that salary is unknown, and we can estimate until we get the best amount of information, but until that contract is settled, we don't know. And so that is a parameter. And we can build that into our estimation that we want to, rather than say, okay, we're just going to do a rollover of a 2% because that's standard. When we're asked to take a look at fair and reasonable contract, we can change our estimates to maybe reflect that, right? We can also, I heard about discussions on continuing to improve our facilities, all within the guidelines of creative approaches to this. Those are parameters. That's all we're asking for. And I think it's good work.
We got that, but we don't have.
We're not asking you to give us numbers right now.
Right.
Because we're not giving you numbers.
Can I
Right.
just, I just want to add something and just say something here. If we've already spent the $4 million from last year, right, we knew we spent it all. If we didn't get that $1 million from Harcum, we would have had $33,000 left over. That's it, right? We're going into this year, so if we used it last year, 2025-26, that $4 million is going to be spent, right? Let's say we don't get the money from Harcum. We don't know, but let's say we get it. We get $1 million, right? We're negotiating, so all of our expenses are going up. So we're not going to need $4 million next year. We're either going to need a lot more millions, either 9.7. It's not staying at $4 million. So either which way, we have to have the conversation. And I think a part of the parameter needs to be that the administration, when they are presenting us with presentations, about going over the tax cap as well, so that we know that we have a 10-year plan in the projections, because the Finance Committee has not seen one projection of what it's going to be as yet, because we don't have numbers from the state. We're still waiting on a lot of information to come in, and I think once we have all of that and we get a full picture, we need to present it to the community. But I think this board needs to seriously think about and incorporate into our parameters that we might have to go over the tax cap. And that needs to be a conversation that we have, and is also presentations that the administration is going to present to the board, so we can digest it and present it to the community and see what everyone and how everyone feels, because we have to get feedback on that. So, you know, we don't have any more information. I'm sitting here looking at the audit report from October 5th that was presented to all of us. So if anyone in the community is watching this and they want to go see the audit report as what they came and presented here, it's all on here. It shows us all the projections and all the money, and everything is right there for us to look at. So I think a part of this discussion and a part of our parameters needs to be that this board needs to see presentations from the administration going above the tax cap if it's needed, so that we can make an informed decision as a board as to how we want to move forward.
Erica, I think the part that might be a little different from last year is exactly what he was saying. So last year, we kind of went in with a parameter saying we didn't want to go over tax cap. We didn't want to exceed tax cap. We didn't know at that time what it was, but we just knew we didn't want to exceed it. I think the part this year, when I was saying I didn't have enough information, I was saying I didn't have enough information to say whether to remain within it or pierce it yet, because we have that unique situation that he was saying with the union, the union contract. So
Right.
it just kind of makes it a little bit different.
It's not that it's different, it's that
So there's less stability
No,
in terms of
I get
like
all
that
that. What I'm
number.
saying is, I am sitting here as a trustee that has not seen any of the things that are referred to. So leading into, like it's not different. We have to be more, it doesn't really matter. I understand all of it, but you can't say that some people on the board have seen projections and where we are and where we're not, when the rest of us have not.
There has been
I
no
don't-
projections that have been presented to anyone on this board.
Estimates,
She gave a number of what she thinks is gonna happen,
Right.
but that's a number. We can all, I'm sorry, can I have this one second?
I got it,
We can all, without even getting Jill's estimate, know that if we spend the 4 million last year, and we're gonna spend the 4 million this year, we need a lot more than 4 million for the next year.
Yeah, totally.
Right, so, and we're in the middle of a negotiation, so whether it's 9 million, or it's 8 million, or it's 10 million, it's going up regardless
We
of what
got
it
that,
is.
but, but 1 percentage point makes a big difference when you're talking about these things, whether it's, you said, you threw out 15% or 13%, like, these different percentage points make a big difference, so.
So here's what we can do. As I said before, the way that this process works in terms of our presentations is that prior to the public board session where we're going to have a discussion on the budget, we will have the finance committee is scheduled to meet. And prior to that, whoever's presenting the budget meets with the cabinet, so they're prepared to run their draft by the finance committee. We will make sure that any presentation or data shared at those finance committees is shared in our weekly update with the Board of Education. And so that way that there's
Everyone's informed at the same time what's going on, not just, it's critical in this time especially that we have, all of us have as much information as possible when we're making these decisions, because 1 percentage point to the community makes a huge difference.
And if I may, so if I'm hearing we want to talk about how the implication of a tax cap, how we can present budgets in our presentation that consider piercing the tax cap. What that would look like is, as we begin to know more about our tax cap, our numbers that we're going to present in terms of the weekly presentation or the monthly, bi-weekly presentations that you see, they're going to be what our budget code owners and our program administrators still believe they need to run that program. As we know more about what our tax cap may be, we could say that we can give you estimates as to far as if our tax cap is X and our overall cost of our budget is Y, this is what would be an increase in a percentage point that might put us over or to the tax cap. That it wouldn't be that. In general terms, when we build this budget, we will be talking about, hey, always mindful of that tax cap. So the question always comes up: do you do a zero-based budget? Where appropriate? Where is a zero-based budget not appropriate? In known items that we have to pay going into the year, such as our contract costs, healthcare costs now, those items that we have no control over, but everything else that we build to support students in our program and operations that does not have a contractual or a mandated amount to it, we will start from zero and estimate the need. And here's how we relay that to our administrators. Bring up to us what you want, what you are requesting, and tie it to one of our strategic objectives. Tie it to a strategic plan initiative, tie it to our mission or vision, and explain it to us. And let's have a conversation about that.
Erica, when I said 13%, I was thinking back, and I'm sitting here trying to remember the name of the gentleman that presented to us, Don Hoffman, when he presented the fund balance decrease. I'm wondering if an updated presentation like that would be something that would be helpful as we're thinking, like if we were to use the 9, and again, this is just a number, but if we were to use 9.7 this year, and what you're thinking, like where does that put us in the next 5 to 8 years in terms of what's left in that, and approximately percent increase then in taxes, if you're saying that might be helpful for the board and for the community to see what those numbers look like, because I know we did that, was that 2 to 3 years ago?
So we built the projections that we've added to the end of each budget presentation. We built that off of the visual that was provided in that presentation, because we did receive the feedback that that was helpful. So we'll continue to do that.
Anybody have anything else they want to add to the discussion at this time?
So thank you. Whether, again, I'll reiterate this, whether you feel you did or not, you did provide us with parameters, and that's where we can start. So each time you'll probably start to see this fleshed out a little more. I do want to go back to our final slide of this presentation, just to talk about some various reminders. This will be on every presentation as well. This includes when our budget vote is, when our public hearing is, what our commitment as a school district is to communicating about those particular dates and the content of our budget. It also talks about if we do have to go into a contingency budget, what occurs there, and when a contingent vote would occur. In general terms, if the community, if the district does go into a contingent budget, we have three options. We can, if the budget does not pass on the 16th, 19th, sorry, May 19th, we could immediately adopt a contingent budget. The board could adopt a contingent budget immediately. The board could propose a revised budget and have that on the budget revote of June 16th. Or they could, what am I missing, Joe? Adopt immediately, propose, or submit the same budget again up for consideration on the revote. So that's there. And then we will continue to review all these each time. So I thank you for your input. I will draft some parameters to share. It will be added to our next presentation, but I will also share it with the board in one of our weekly updates. So thank you.
Can I just ask one more question? I know we just finished. If we were planning on piercing the tax cap, can you just remind us what that vote would look like?
Sure. So any budget, according to New York State tax cap legislation, that goes over the calculated and approved tax cap for each individual school district, so it's not always 2%, would require a supermajority of 60% of the voters who vote to approve that budget, to pass that budget. In a tax cap compliant budget, it would just take a simple majority of one vote more than equal to pass the budget. Simple majority.
Thank you for that. And I'm just going to hand it right back over to you for the superintendent's update.
No, we have one more. Oh, I'm sorry, that's new business. Yes, I apologize. So I was all ready to do the next presentation. When we just recently had an event that has caused me to bring up this first part of the update. So it's appropriate time, I believe, for my annual explanation of the decision-making process regarding how we close schools or delay school due to inclement weather. I was prompted to share this update by receiving several wonderful requests in the form of what I would consider persuasive essays, even though they came through emails, from some of our engaged middle school students regarding why they did not get a day off or a partial day off as some of their regional colleagues did. And so while it was my pleasure to share with those students in particular and respond to each of their well-reasoned arguments, it highlighted the importance of updating our entire community on how these complex decisions are reached. So growing up, you may not know this about me, my father was the principal of my rival school. Due to the size of that school, he as principal also made snow closure decisions for the entire district. I remember sitting at the breakfast table on some of those early Adirondack snowy mornings, hoping my principal would close and watching my father make the call to open or not. So even being that close to the decision, I never really knew what caused him to close or keep the school open. And I am currently frequently asked, what goes into a weather-related closing? And my answer is more than you could ever possibly know. But I'll attempt to try to succinctly answer that right now. And as every situation is different, in most cases the following process occurs. If a known weather system is near, superintendents of our PNW BOCES, Button Northern Westchester BOCES, which includes Hendrick Hudson, we group together on a phone call. If it's in the morning, it's a nice bright early 4:30 a.m. call. And the purpose of that call is to gain a better understanding of the impact of the storm to the region and to attempt to coordinate efforts. I jump on at 4:30. Some other school districts spend money to have a meteorologist have a phone call at like 4:15 or so, but here's the secret that I found out. If they're jumping on the call after just having that phone call with the meteorologist, I'm going to hear from them what they heard with the meteorologist, so don't tell them about that. So exactly. We're being creative. So that's crucial. Not only it's crucial not because people think, oh, you don't want to be the only school district that opens or the only school district that closes. That's not really it. That's a portion of it. But it's crucial because many of our staff travel from the surrounding areas and neighboring towns within our consortium. So gaining an understanding of how those conditions in our neighboring towns is helpful about will our staff be able to come in and support our students. We also know that students may travel to other districts not only for our out-of-district placements, but also for out-of-district athletic events and extracurricular activities. Prior to that 4:30 a.m. call, since I'm not on call with the other superintendents, I'm waking up individuals such as Ms. Spigarella, our Department of, our transportation supervisor, and our facilities department to ensure that our facilities, buildings, and grounds and our buses are safe and our buses can run safely. So prior to meeting with me, I asked those team members to reach out to anybody within their sphere, such as town partners and the town highway department to gauge their efforts to clear the roads and make them safe for school transportation. So after that regional call, I'll debrief with our team again, which have been busy continuously checking the conditions of the roads in the district and consulting even with town highways, state police. And based on those road conditions and all the previous actions that I just went into ad nauseum to describe, I will make a final decision whenever possible to close or delay no later than 6:15 unless an emergency situation arises. We communicate that decision to close or delay through Parent Square, and remember, parents can go onto our website under the Parent Square section to tailor how they want to receive communications. We also share information with the various media outlets, our district website, and our district social media channels. Other considerations is timing. The timing of that weather event is crucial. If we think that the timing it's a storm that's going to pass, and the passing of that storm occurs as we are bringing students in. If we can get students in and then the storm passes, we try to predict that, but again, we're not weather people. It also, if it coincides with our arrival or dismissal times, those play a role. I also thoroughly consider the broader impact of closing on the community, including parents' ability to work if they don't have access to childcare, the strain on emergency services if we send buses out, and there's the potential that we could have to have them respond to that. And we also look at impact on partners such as our UPK program, Mother Connection Beyond the Bell, and the role our food services function provides for families, and of course, lost instructional time. I prefer to communicate early, enough to give families enough time to make arrangements for family-specific decisions, and whenever possible, if we know we're going to have a major weather event and there's the opportunity to call a snow day in advance because it's just going to be that major of an impact, we try to make that decision early, because especially if we know it's predicted, if an existing condition is going to worsen overnight. So ultimately, my objective is this: prioritize the safety of everyone involved in the school community. It requires a balance between the potential risks associated with severe weather conditions and the importance of maintaining our educational continuity for our students. The simple fact that weather systems may be present does not always equate to a closure or delay. If the roads are safe or can be made safe for travel, I will always try to get our students in for the instruction and the related services that are provided by our school. So that, in a nutshell, is the easy way to make a decision on whether to close or open schools. It's fun. Shifting gears a little bit, I would like to provide a brief update regarding the Magnum Metal Superfund site mitigation. I did not make that up. Magnum Metal Site Superfund mitigation. I never thought I'd have to say that as a superintendent. For those who are unaware of this site's history, Magnum Metals was a metal plating, polishing, and lacquering facility. Yes, lacquering facility located at 510 Furnace Dock Road in Cortland Manor that operated from 1955 to when I was a year old in 1979. During its operation, the facility is claimed to have discharged wastewater, including industrial solvents and metals such as copper, nickel, and zinc, into leaching pits, which resulted in the contamination of local soil, groundwater, and nearby waterways, including the Furnace Brook. In 2019, the Environmental Protection Agency added this site to the national priorities list known as the Superfund list to prioritize the long-term cleanup of that site. Recently, I received a wonderful email where I was able to know more about this site, saying that there are samples from EPA monitoring regarding their ongoing investigation. So that prompted me to contact the EPA and find out what was going on. So they brought me up to speed. As part of this communication with the EPA, there was an investigation where the EPA looked at samples collected throughout 2023 and 2024 from areas on our property to include Blue Mountain Middle School and Furnace Woods Elementary School. The EPA is continuing its analysis of that data and has shared that a full human health risk assessment is underway. I mentioned that in another update to the community on this. So while the EPA has not issued an immediate health advisories on our properties, it is recommended that a series of simple precautionary steps be taken out of an abundance of caution to minimize the potential exposure, which our facilities crew is aware of. That's not the new update. We've already talked about that before. I do want to say this, though. It's important to clarify that as opposed to our role on the Indian Point Decommissioning Oversight Board, the Hendrick-Hudson School District has no oversight, no supervisory role, or operational connection to the remediation work being conducted at the Magna Metals site. This is a federal project managed entirely by the EPA. Our involvement is strictly limited to advocating for our students and staff, and I've explicitly requested that the EPA keep the district informed so that we, in turn, can ensure our community receives timely and accurate updates. We've been in constant contact with them. The EPA has recently reached out to me to let me know that they are hosting an open house on their progress with respect to the cleanup of the Superfund site of Magna Metals. That open house will take place, and we'll put this on our website, and I'll send it out in Monday's communication as well. That event, that open house for the EPA that the EPA is hosting will take place on Thursday, December 11th, from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at the Hendrick-Hudson Free Library in their community room located at 185 Kings Ferry Road in Montrose. I encourage community members to attend to discuss the sampling work that the EPA has done and their next steps, and we will remain committed to the transparency and sharing updates as they come here. Now, if you're keeping score of our calendars, you may notice that the Indian Point Decommissioning Oversight Board will be held on the same evening. So, as I've shared previously, ensuring that our school community's voice is heard during the decommissioning process is one of our top priorities. To that end, I formally requested the New York State Public Service Commission to hold their December meeting within our district to keep the focus on those most affected by the decisions. As I've shared recently, the New York State Public Service Commission will be holding its next meeting at the Buchanan Verplank Elementary School, and that meeting will be held on Thursday, December 11th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. The agenda will include presentations and updates from state agencies regarding the ongoing decommissioning site. If there are members of our community who will attend that meeting and who wish to make a public statement during that meeting, they must pre-register by 12 p.m. on Tuesday, December 9th, 2025. While it's being held at Buchanan Verplank, we are not in charge of the meeting and the public comment section as we are in a board meeting. So I'll send this out in a communication as well, so families can just click on a link if they'd like to have public comment. So pre-registration is not required, but for those who simply just wish to attend and not comment, it is encouraged to pre-register to help us plan the event to make sure we have enough seats. So I want to remind everyone, as I just did, that this meeting coincides with the Magna Metals open house at Hendrick-Hudson Free Library. I reached out to the EPA to let them know that, not because the EPA is federal, they're not related with anything of the Indian Point Decommissioning Oversight Board. They have said, given that, they will invite our residents to attend the open house as early as 5 p.m. So that they can make it to the DOB if they want to. So they'll allow time to ask questions before heading back to Buchanan Verplank for the 6 p.m. meeting. I want to thank the New York State Public Service Commission for their responsiveness to our request to hold the meeting at Buchanan Verplank, as well as our facilities team, our technology staff led by Vanitha Joy, and our principal, Dr. Kramer, over at Buchanan Verplank for their efforts in hosting this event, and as always to our PT Advocacy Committee, who's a constant source of support for our efforts on this front. My final item for update, it relates to a community summit on youth wellness and responsibility, and an ongoing effort to address underage vaping and access to products such as THC. Our district has recently invited business owners, businesses from across the local area, including dispensaries, convenience stores, and smoke shops, to a community summit on youth wellness and responsibility, which was held today at the Hendrick-Hudson Free Library. Look at all the press the Hendrick-Hudson Free Library is. It just shows how good of a partner they are. We also invited partners from the town of Cortland Community Coalition, the Westchester County Police, and our students assistance counselors from our various buildings, and also the Westchester County Department of Behavioral Health. The purpose of this forum was to problem solve the use of, as a community regarding how to combat underage use of products such as vapes, tobacco, and THC. I say this, we know it's prevalent within our schools, and no amount of discipline alone, suspending students, giving them detention, no amount of education alone is going to solve the problem. How do I know that? Because it hasn't. So I am going to be 100% honest, as I always try to be. I don't know how to solve this problem. So the purpose behind this forum was to reach out to community members who are directly involved in the sale of these materials, not accusing them that they are selling these products, because that's not what it was, but is to help gain a better understanding of what's occurring in our schools and how we as a community can help our students continue to make healthier choices each day. Now, as with most of my meetings, not a single business owner sent a representative to participate today. However, I do want to specifically thank Carmen for her help in planning the event and personally visiting businesses across Cortland, Peekskill, Croton, Ossining, where else? To deliver those invitations. I was supposed to go with her, but I got pulled out and she had to do it by herself. So I also want to express our gratitude to representatives from those various organizations who did show up, including Lisa Maria Albanese, Matt Worth, Colleen Anderson, Lindsay Lupicello, and one of our parents who also happens to work for Westchester County, Lindsay Rivera. Despite the absence of our local businesses, we had a productive conversation. And as the young lady who initially declined my offer asking her to junior prom in 1996 can attest, I may not be the most handsome individual, but I am appropriately persistent. So to that end, we will revisit these businesses. Carmen doesn't know this yet. We will go back out to these businesses and re-invite them to this forum, which we will hold at another time because the safety of our students is too important not to pursue every avenue. So that is my update at this time. There are no questions for follow-up. I will tell my son who is watching to go to bed, especially since he heard you say 6-7. Still have no idea what that means. And I will now ask Dr. Stephen Garcia for his update. Looking back, we do not have any cabinet updates at this time. I will provide updates at the meeting. So that is our cabinet and superintendent's update.
Thank you. You should take a drink of water.
I'm good, thank you. Just Jill. Jill, you're going to stay with me for the final presentation, but we can release the remainder of the cabinet.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a good evening.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we do have another presentation, and that is under our board commentary business, and it is on the first responder tax exemption, and it will be our initial discussion.
So Jill's going to lead us through the bodice of the slide deck here, but as she's coming up and preparing to do that, I do want to preface this. So this presentation was brought to us similar to the veterans exemption. We had members of that stakeholder group, volunteer fighters, firefighters, first responders, come to us and ask us to consider this exemption. The timing of it, I understand, is on the same night that we just started talking about all the wonderful parameters that we have in terms of our budget development. But this timing needs to occur now because it could be a variable within our budget that we propose, and it also, we have to comply to various timelines if the board were to consider to adopt this exemption in future budget cycles and tax cycles. So Greg, if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide. Of course, this is our objective. In general terms, we're going to provide you with data behind the background on what the first responders exemption is. We're also going to talk about if the board were to adopt this, what that would look like in terms of our best estimation, and what steps the board would need to take to do that. And if the board needs additional information to help make its decision, we're going to solicit that now. So I'll turn it over to Jill.
Okay, so you can, yeah, that's good to start there. So New York State offers a property tax reduction benefit for volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers. This is not something new. School districts around the area, the region, the state have already adopted things like this to apply towards school taxes. It is applied towards county and town taxes as well if those county and towns have adopted it, but it isn't something brand new. This is something that's been around. Eligible volunteers must meet all the specific qualifications. The percent of assessed value to be exempt is selected by the board. In other words, anywhere up to 10% of the property's assessed value of their primary residence, with a maximum reduction of full value of $3,000. So the minimum service requirement for this volunteer ambulance or volunteer firefighter has to be between 2 and 5 years. They must be primary resident. They must be a primary resident. Sorry. It must be applied to their primary residence used exclusively as a residential property. They're qualified volunteer firefighters and volunteer ambulance workers who are homeowners and reside and serve within the school district would have to apply and be approved by the assessor. If approved, they will receive a school tax exemption in the following school year. So they would have to apply for this by March 1st. There's two additional things that would have to be decided by the board. One is if an enrolled member who has more than 20 years of active service would be granted the exemption for the rest of their life. And then if the exemption is to be continued for an unremarried spouse of an enrolled member who was either killed in the line of duty or if the service provided before the member's death was a minimum of 5 years. So if the exemption were to be adopted, these are two other parts of that exemption that would have to be decided on.
Jill, if I could just, in a few slides, Jill is going to show you regional information on which municipalities or school districts have, or towns, have adopted the exemption. My understanding is that for any one of those municipalities that have adopted it, they have adopted additionally 1 and 2 on this slide.
These two items to go along with it. Okay, so what is the impact to the taxpayer, right? So there's no impact on the school tax levy itself. So whatever tax levy is part of the school budget is still the tax levy that the school district collects. The taxable assessed value exemption amount is redistributed to other taxpayers. So if 3 people get an exemption from their property, that assessed value that's removed from their property gets added to the total assessed value and redistributed to the rest of the community. And you'll see that in the calculation. The impact is on the tax rate. So after that calculation is done, the rate is affected by moving those dollars around. And so the amount per $1,000 of assessed value is what changes. So again, here's the process. The board must consider adoption of the exemption. There has to be a public comment period. There has to be a public hearing. The board must pass a resolution. We would, as a district, have to notify the assessor's office of this, of the exemption if that's what's decided. Individuals would have to apply themselves to be eligible. They have to fill out what's called an RP 466. D is for people who live in Westchester County with the local assessor by March 1st. Important point to mention, volunteers in New York State are also eligible for a statewide income tax credit. If they have that income tax credit, they cannot have this and that. It cannot have both. So that's a consideration of the person applying for it. They can either decide to apply for it or take their income tax credit, whichever is obviously more advantageous for that person.
And Jill, just to interrupt real quick, that would not be for the district to decide, that would be the assessor's office to confirm.
Right, well, the person would decide if we had the exemption and they could take either one. They don't have to take, they can't take both.
And if you look at this time frame, it says the individual would notify the assessor's office by March 1st to take place the following year.
Right.
Not the current.
No, because the tax rolls that our taxes are based on are from the previous years. Okay, you can keep going. So the regional comparison, I polled 64 districts, I got 30 responses. The ones on the left are the school districts that have adopted that exemption. Ones on the right have not. Per the town of Cortland, so the Cortland town and county taxes have adopted this exemption. There are 34 eligible people or homeowners on that list right now that are using it. Again, there's no way to really gauge how many people there would be because some people are taking that income tax credit and some people are taking this credit exemption. So right now the town of Cortland had 34 eligible people on the list. Great, you can keep going. So This is a run-through of how that would calculate or change the rate. So the assessed valuation this current year for all parcels is $40,326,193. The estimated value of those 34 exemptions would be $19,936. You remove that from the assessed valuation, it's $40,306,257. We apply the equalization rate for the town of Cortland, which is 1.18%, to bring the assessed values up to a full value, which is that number, $3,415,000. Okay, and then Cortland makes up 92.57% of our total tax levy, which would bring us to $50,452,557. And then you would calculate the tax rate. So the tax rate for the current school year for the residents of Cortland is $1,251.16 for each $1,000 of assessment. It would bring that rate up by 57 cents if the 34 people were to have those exemptions. So the new tax rate would be $1,251.73. And on a home that's estimated at $500,000, I just used that figure, we're talking about $3.42 annually on a home that's worth $500,000. So you'd have to figure out where you are in the scheme of things.
So that's the exemplar that you can use to see what a potential impact on a homeowner would be. Obviously, as Jill said, with a $500,000 house, if the board were to adopt this exemption, and all 34 of those individuals who are eligible applied, right? There's a lot of
Right,
variables
it
here.
would be that if those 34 people applied, and more could apply.
Right.
So I really have no way to gauge that, like I said, that's how many are on the tax rolls at the current moment.
Because the responsibility for the levy shifts to those individuals now who are not eligible for that exemption, those people would see a $3.42 increase if they had a home of $500,000 on their annual school taxes. So at this point in time, if there's any additional information that the board may need, or if the ask at the end of this presentation, which this is the end, is to see, is it the sense of the board that this is an exemption they would like to consider adopting or not consider adopting, or is more information needed?
I have one question. When we were doing the veterans exemption, there were like different levels, right, that we had to select from. Is this just a flat, like it's...
From 0 to 10%.
And then we would have to decide that?
Yep.
Is there any way to know then from the ones who are a yes, can we ask at what?
There's one district that has a 5%, the rest are all 10.
Oh, you already know that. Awesome, thank you.
I do. I do.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
only
you.
one of them had a 5% change.
Okay.
Jill, I have a question. The ones that are no, did they just, they don't have it, or they didn't want to do it?
I don't know the answer to that. So whether they've explored it or not,
Yeah.
right, is what you're asking.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
So we decide the percentage that they save on their taxes, and that doesn't impact the number that our taxpayers would pay?
No, it does. It does impact them. So right now, that's what I'm saying. It'll be up, it would go up 57 cents per $1,000 of assessment for the other taxpayers.
With a full 10%.
If 34.
With the desk, that reflects the 10%.
Oh, yes, yes.
And this is including Buchanan as well.
Yep, that's,
I have
Peekskill doesn't have any, I don't know which.
Peekskill is not volunteer, because unless they are volunteering in one of our other three communities, but they pay their.
Right, but Peekskill and Cortland, so I don't know what part of, what is Buchanan part of, Peekskill or Cortland?
Buchanan's, we have our own
They're
fire.
on fire.
But the residents of Buchanan.
We pay Cortland, we pay them all.
We have our own
But-
fire. No, they're part of Cortland.
Where do they pay taxes?
Where do they pay
Cortland.
school taxes?
Cortland. Cortland.
So the Cortland then has that exemption available to them for town and county already.
Right, Peekskill is a city. I think they pay
Well,
their
there's the city of Peekskill, and then there's also the town of Peekskill. Or whatever.
So it
village,
would,
whatever
it
you want.
would be based upon where they pay their taxes,
Yeah,
right?
right, and I know Peekskill doesn't have that exemption right now, but that doesn't matter. If the school adopts it, the people who live in the school district would be eligible for it, whether they have it or not.
But they have to be volunteer firefighters.
Or ambulance workers.
Yes.
So it's only volunteer.
Yes. Oh, you're saying the city may be paid?
The city of Peekskill has a fire department that they employ and pay.
Right, okay, I gotcha.
Just a quick question, why did this come up now? Do we know?
Yes, I was approached by members of the community who happen to be first responders, and they asked me to relay to the board that they would like this to be considered. I communicated that to the board, and it was decided that we would put this on as a topic for study at an upcoming board.
Yeah, I mean, in my former district, we had it probably 10 years ago.
It's fine, I love it, I think it's not a problem. The only thing I'm concerned about is the timing, and will it trigger other groups of people to come and ask for tax breaks at a time when we really can't afford to be giving groups, but this is a no-brainer for me, this is a very easy one, I'm 100% on board.
There's only
I'm
certain
just
types of
curious.
exemptions that, you know, school districts, residents are entitled to. There are a number of them,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there's only 3 that I know of that are normally applied for school, and it's the STAR exemption, the senior, they call it, there's another type of senior exemption, and it's based on a sliding scale. And then there's this exemption.
And the veterans.
And the veterans exemption, sorry, there's 4.
Just to clarify, I'm not really sure if anyone would volunteer outside of their community, but this is for people who reside and volunteer within the community. Okay.
Well, I'm on board. If you're getting a census, she wasn't asking yet, was she?
No, we can. Does anybody else have anything they want to ask?
Well, we still have to do the public hearing.
Yeah, we still have a lot of other.
Right, I mean,
if the
you
board-
want to decide if you
let me give you an
want to
example.
have-
If the
He said,
board
what's
were-
the sense?
if the board were to say, no, this is not a sense of the board, that would be the end of this. If the board does say it is a sense of the board to explore this exemption, we would start the process to make sure that we hold the public comment and public hearing requirements and make sure that the board is kept updated on that, and then communicate that to the public as well so that they can participate.
I might also just mention that this might be like a sign of goodwill, that we are actually trying to be sensible when it comes to our taxpayers in this district. We're not just trying to, increase our tax cap. We're trying to be as mindful as we can of the people in this community and finding ways to be creative to save them money when and where we can. So it might be a good sign of us trying, reaching out.
So, I don't know if we need to do an individual vote or just like a pulse check as if there's anyone who would be opposed to further exploring this.
I would do an individual vote.
Okay, you want to do an individual vote? So, motion to make a roll call vote to see if we should further explore the first responders tax exemption.
Second?
All in favor of roll calling? Okay, so Allison, would you mind if I started with you?
Not at all. I vote yes.
Corey?
Yes.
Myself, I will vote yes to further explore this.
Yes.
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 Thank you.
So the district will move forward with putting in place, that the board is going to consider a resolution to adopt the first responder exemption, and we will work on the time period that is needed for the public hearing and comment period, and present that to the board, and then that will result in the board, if they hear any comments, or even if they don't, making a decision at a future public board meeting.
Thank you. So that concludes this part of our board comments, new business, which brings us to our policy readings. And tonight we have 4, 2 that we are looking for first readings to retire, and 2 that we would like to revise. Okay, so the first policy we have is policy 0350. We are looking, this is the first reading to retire this policy, which is evaluation of instructional programs. The Board of Education recognizes.
The reading of policy 0350.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so upon doing a deep dive of our policies, I believe that this one was one that we found was also already present in.
It was redundant.
It was redundant, and it was within another policy that we had recently approved.
We approved, and they're working on the regulations, so this was redundant and beyond all that.
So can we retire?
We can retire it tonight,
We can-
because the other ones are already.
Yes, the other ones are already in place, so if we wanted to do that, we would have to waive the second reading and then approve to retire.
Does anybody call this?
Anyone have any questions about it?
Any questions?
Any questions on this policy?
Motion to retire,
To waive the second reading.
to waive the second reading for policy 0350.
Second.
All in favor?
Motion to retire policy 0350, evaluation of instructional programs.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so policy 0350, evaluation of instructional programs will be retired. Which you can still see on,
Yeah, there'll be
you can still see it on there, it will just now be in the archive, yes. Okay, the next reading we have is to, again, retire policy 5153, which is the policy on non-resident students. The Board of Education may decide in its sole
Motion to waive
discretion.
the reading.
Second.
All in favor?
This was another retired policy we're recommending to retire because it was also redundant. I'm not sure, if Mike, if you want to get into the details of where this is covered elsewhere, if that might help.
It's in 5152.
We incorporated it into policy 5152.
It was 5152.
Emissions of,
We combine them,
Yes.
and that's already approved.
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Back in.
So we can read the reading of this one as well.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions on policy 5153? More comments?
Motion to waive the reading,
Second.
the second reading of policy 5153.
Second.
All in favor?
Make a motion to retire policy 5153, non-resident students.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, so policy 5153, non-resident students will also be retired. And again, you can find that in the archive section of our policies online. Okay, so now we have a policy that we wanted to revise, which is policy 2550. So this is the first reading of board member compensation and expense. Members of the
Motion to
board,
waive the reading of policy 2550.
Second.
all in favor?
This was just adding the words to make it clear. It's like one sentence about the reimbursement to the board when we are doing, officially traveling or doing work for the board.
And I believe Carmen also then put in the where it was cross-referenced. So
Yes.
that's going to be from there, so you can see that's in the 6,000 series.
Right, and then this one will come back.
Yes, anyone have any? It's just funny to also see that it was not touched since 1987.
As many of the policies we'll be writing in the next round will have the same number.
That's crazy.
Anyone have any questions or comments before we move on? And again, as Erica said, this will be brought back to our next meeting. Okay, so then the last one that we have for tonight is the first reading of a revision of policy 6705, reimbursement for meals, refreshments. For meals, refreshments, conferences, and travel expenses.
Motion to waive the reading of policy 6705, reimbursement for meals, refreshments, for conference, and travel expenses.
Second.
All in favor? Sorry. You guys, I'm a math teacher, I deal with this all day long.
I'm going to fast forward the meeting to this point. Make my kids watch it.
All day long.
This just got into more clarity about what fell under reimbursement, meal or refreshment, and who and what and when qualifies for those things. It's outlined in this policy.
Yeah, no, I kind of feel like we had a pretty lengthy discussion on this to all just be like, we kind of don't really reimburse a lot, but it did lead us to probably a longer conversation that we needed to have on this. Just talking about like timing of meals, right? That there's the standard breakfast, lunch, and dinner times, just for there. And again, that process also goes back to when we are filling out those expense reports.
Claim forms,
and
correct.
claim forms. And that would be an example of one that would not be preempted, so there would have been no purchase order ahead of time. Although Carmen does open.
If we do want
some now.
to, if you do want to geek out on this, yes, if you do know, if the school, if there is an understanding that there may be potential travel expenses, you could always open a purchase order for an estimated amount ahead of time.
Yes.
So you avoid a confirming purchase order.
Yes. Yeah, this is another one that will be coming back to us for a second reading in our next meeting. But does anybody have any questions or comments or any clarification on anything for here? All right, we are moving along. We have committee reports.
I can,
We'll
I'll
start down the line.
Yeah, I'll start with the high school PTSA. They canceled their meeting next week for December 8th, I think, and they're going to send out some notes to their membership about that meeting. Just an FYI, we have a student meeting tomorrow after school at 2:15 for the fashion show. Any senior students interested in participating are welcome to join us. We're still looking for parent volunteers, and we will be doing another shop the sale on December 16th during lunch, and we are still looking for donations. So any donations you have for the fashion show can be dropped off at the high school in the lobby. Should I miss anything for the high school?
What kind of donations?
Clothes donations.
Clothing for the fashion show, for the student fashion show in March.
We're looking for just about anything that are clothing for.
You like men's clothes too, right?
Yeah, we're lacking in men's clothes.
So is it supposed to be current or is?
No, actually.
It's actually doing
decades.
Yeah.
The theme is decades, so we're going to be covering every decade. I think we start in the 20s and we work all the way up until the early 2000s, and then we have a prom segment at the end.
Yeah, so you have like fancy dresses.
Probably donate to that.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
I'm displaying the 1940s this evening.
I just sent 2 bags of stuff to.
And we actually were talking today about how we specifically are going to need at least one poodle skirt. So anyone that. A poodle skirt from the 50s, that we don't have in our stockpile right
I
now.
can't help you on that one.
Sure, Mike.
I'm sure.
And then the other committee report is Lauren and I attended the CIA curriculum instruction meeting, which is a lot of staff, which is wonderful. And I think we're linking those notes online now, if I'm correct, somewhere on our website.
Yes, let me just find the exact click sequence, yes.
Because everything that's discussed there is in those notes, and there's a lot of really good ideas. Our staff is working on some great things to present to the community and the board at some point, and then Mr. Trombley will be we'll get what they're proposing, but there's some really great ideas on moving our plan pilot forward, and collaboration between interdisciplinary units like art and social studies and English. There's also conversations around bringing language earlier into our 6th grade. So a lot of good work going on there, but it would, I don't want to sit here and reiterate all the notes. I just would think that they should be public, or they're going to be made public.
So yes, we do have a click sequence for people to access those notes. Greg, if you'll take me, look at that. If you go under academic learning, curriculum instruction, you scroll down, you'll see curriculum committee in the blue. And then the first button on top of the C&I agenda minutes.
Yep, perfect.
And thank you to Ms. Scollins for not only having the coolest acronym of our cabinet members of CIA, but also for posting those notes available to the public.
Dr. Scott.
Dr. Scollins, yes.
Scollins.
Apologize, Dr. Scollins.
Excellent. That's it for me.
Let's see, I feel like I've attended quite a few. We had finance. So I think Jill basically told you everything we went over in finance, so don't need to go into that. Also attended the safety meeting on the 20th. We also had audit. We also attended professional development. I think you were on that as well. So there's been quite a few meetings and committees. I don't know if this was brought up at the elementary PTA last meeting, but I'll just say it. They're having the Breakfast with Frosty next Saturday at the high school, I believe. So you can buy tickets to go to that. There's like 2 different time slots to sign up for breakfast. And also they need volunteers, I believe, for helping from the high school students. So.
We also wanted a donation of books.
Oh, and donation, they're taking donations of children's books as well, which I have a bunch. Yeah, because I think they have a whole table where kids can just go up and pick books. So I specifically asked what kind, so they just said any like school level books. So I guess since it's for mostly elementary, kindergarten through 5th grade types of reading. Yeah.
Where do you drop them off?
Well, it's at one particular house, so you could probably maybe just get in touch with us if you have some books and we could drop them off for you or something, because I'm going to actually be going by to drop some books off probably tomorrow or by Friday.
I think they said by the 10th.
Yeah, so that's...
I'm trying to remember now where I saw the...
That's next Friday, right, the 10th, Thursday? Yeah. Yeah, we could get them from you, or you could reach out to the school and drop them
Yeah, you
off
can reach
here.
out to me.
Yeah,
They're used books, it's okay.
Yeah. So if you have any children's books laying around, I have a lot, so. Okay, that's all for me.
That's mine, so just skip over me.
Okay, keeping with the PTA theme, the elementary school, in conjunction with SUPTA, will be having their meeting on December 15th at 7 p.m. at the high school library. We did have facilities policy, we just, did publicly. Facilities, we had 2 meetings since our last time meeting. One was where we met to, since it's one of our goals for this year to look at our facilities a little more, we've had a meeting to set up all our meetings for the year. So we set up our calendar and what we wanted to do, because part of our goal is to not only look at the capital project as it's happening now, but to also come up with that 5 to 10 year plan of what needs to be done and making sure that we are really looking at our facilities to see what improvements we need. And then just on, was it yesterday?
Yes.
Wow, I don't know my days anymore. Yesterday we had a presentation from the company KSQ that has been working with us on our capital project to go through phase 2 final design. So that went yesterday. We did get a very detailed presentation on what they wanted to do in that phase 2, which if you've been following along, that's some things at the high school, mainly at the high school and the middle school, and then a little bit less at the, mostly cosmetic at our elementary levels, and dome in the high school. From there, we are gathering all of our feedback, and we will be presenting that before they start looking for putting it out to bid. Oh my God, my husband does this for a living. I would be so embarrassed that I forgot this. Putting it out for a bid in mid-January.
Yes, so we met, KSQ, myself and our construction managers from Triton, Ms. Figueroa, we have a monthly OACM meeting, I love acronyms, owner, architect, capital project manager meetings where we just problem solve anything, update items related to the capital project. And the debrief from that was they updated me on how they're going to respond to the feedback that was provided with that. And we looked at when we provide the next updates to the board, because we do have some updates coming up. We want to make sure when KSQ and Triton come to present, who's our construction manager, that they're doing so with knowledge of basic and any update that may come out of that bid. So that will be, we may see our topics for the board meeting change in the next couple weeks here.
And then the last thing I wanted to bring up is on November 19th, if you remember, we did have a board meeting that was scheduled that we had to cancel. And that was because there was the Lower Hudson Council of School Superintendents We had a legislative forum that was held in Harrison at LMK Middle School, and it was a chance for superintendents and board presidents to meet with local legislators. So I had the pleasure of going and attending and sitting with Chris Moreno to, sorry,
I had COVID.
somebody.
They didn't want me there.
And I was at the table. It was Hen Hut with Peekskill, Yorktown, Croton, Lakeland, Haldane, BOCES, and Garrison, and we got to sit with Dana Levenberg and talk to her about some advocacy that we want to see as a joint. So it wasn't each school district talking individually. The superintendents had actually been working on this for a while and coming up with their talking points. So there were five advocacy points that they wanted, and it was, it's a point of contention for a lot of people, the foundation aid. There's the fact that nobody knows how the calculator works or that it's always coming out late. They were wondering if that we could get more aid. How is it allocated? You can always feel free to jump in at any point. We were looking at protecting our public education funding. So making sure that, I don't know if everyone knows, but there's, charter schools that can come up, and it's making sure to know that money should be allocated for the public schools and not going to parochial schools or charter schools that don't have to follow the same guidelines. So when we present our budget, we are very transparent as to where that money is going. And then if these schools pop up, we have to give some of our funding to those schools, and they don't have to use it for the same things that we had allocated it for. A lot of stuff on our building safety, security, and unfunded mandates. We did not get to talk as much about our student mental health and well-being, but that did come up in terms of that, even if we can get joint providers that service all of the schools, but having a little bit more there. We did talk a lot about, though, the school bus having to get these new electric buses. And there was that bill, and I know I was joking with you about remembering the number, Bill 9187, which is a bill that was started by one of the legislators in Rockland.
I believe so, yes.
And the goal of that is to push back the start date and then extend the deadline for it, because it just seems unrealistic for schools to have enough funding if by 2035 we have to have our entire fleet or percentage of our fleet being electric. We're talking for our district alone like 40 buses.
Yes, 40 buses, and also not only the buses, but also the electric generation
I was
capabilities.
going to say then the infrastructure.
To basically power MetLife Stadium to power our buses.
And yes, there's a lot of concern just for me when I think about the buses coming, just in terms of the location of where our bus depot is. There's new structures going up. That power grid, we will not have enough. How is that going to look? And I did want to continue this conversation. Unfortunately, we were there for 3 hours, and you think wow, you're going to be sitting here for 3 hours, and time flew by, and I definitely wanted to also continue the conversation with Dana Levenberg on the safety of those buses. And then we also did talk about the cell phone policy and how most districts are finding it to be a pleasure to have the cell phones not be in the classrooms because of the state mandate. Although some did express that they would like local governance of it, but that was my night on November 19th, and it was a great experience.
Thank you for going.
Yes, thank you for going. I'm sorry I could not join you. The group, the Lower Hudson Council for the School Superintendents, did put a lot of effort into it. Our major focus this year is, in case you don't know the role of the superintendent, so while I serve this school community of Hendrick Hudson, upon taking my oath as a superintendent, I have a moral and legal responsibility to advocate for all public school students in the state of New York. And the Lower Hudson takes that charge very seriously. So we put aside local differences, but we realize we know that we have more similarities and differences to advocate particularly for increased funding and equal opportunities for all public school students. And so that's really where the impetus behind this came. So we look forward to continue advocacy on this. and other topics such as ensuring equity of access and opportunities in the high school sports association.
That came up. That came up probably one of the first things that we discussed. And I will say, yes, a lot of effort went into this because while that group that I said we sat with, Dana Levenberg, that was one table out of approximately 20. So there were so many different legislators from all, like Rockland and Westchester. And it was just amazing. I mean, like, it was actually a really, really, really cool experience to be surrounded by so many educated people who are all advocating for a lot of the same things, which is, you know, the education of our children. Going down the line, anybody else have any updates?
I have nothing to add. I joined many of you at many of those other meetings, and I had the same experience.
Allison?
No, same. We already talked policy, we talked advocacy, we talked elementary school PTA. I feel like we're good. I'm good. All right.
Okay, anybody have anything else at this time? Okay, so it's that time of the evening.
Motion to close the